I'm Dr. Sam Everington. I'm a GP in the East End of London. Bromley by Bow started as a church 25 years ago when a new vicar came and realised that actually the congregation was getting older and the whole church needed a new purpose. And they went out to the community and asked the community what they needed. And the need then was a nursery. And so the church in the weekday is a nursery. And in fact, my children now in their 20s went to the nursery after school club. But starting from there, it now has over 100 projects, is a social enterprise and charity, but has developed over 40 social enterprises in Tower Hamlets. Lots of projects, all based around the wider concepts of health. Really, in the NHS, we're responsible for 15, maximum 20% of health of the nation. Other health comes from housing, people's environment, their employment, and their creativity. And I always felt as a GP that if I was truly going to improve people's health, I needed to have access to all these other different services and opportunities for patients. So at Bromley by Bow, for example, we have a jobs advisor. The general practice reception is the reception for everything in the centre, but on that reception desk we also have a receptionist for the local housing association. We are a community university, so we provide all sorts of NVQ courses to help people basically get education. What we know for certain in the health world is if you get somebody a job, if you get somebody education, they will be healthier, full stop. And it almost doesn't matter what the job and what the education is. Right at the front end of Bromley by Bow, we have a community space, which is a bit like an internet cafe, but with some of our workers based there, actually just talking to people when they come in and connecting them to the community. There is all sorts of ways that we work in partnership with patients. For example, we can prescribe people gardening therapy, or we have art therapy, and a whole raft of different therapies where they basically are taking control of their own lives. It's the alternative to the biomedical approach. That doesn't mean to say that the biomedical approach, the prescribing drugs or referring to surgery, isn't appropriate. But a lot of the time, a lot of these alternative therapies can be actually much more successful for patients. One of our latest projects is social prescribing. And basically it means that on the desktop of a GP, there is a referral form which will be populated from all the information in the computer, but will go to the social prescribing team. And you might tick a box, say, for health trainers, for employment advice, or you might just write as a GP, my patient's got this problem, help. And the social prescribing team will then ring the patient and connect them into the 1,100 voluntary sector organisations in Tower Hamlets. Now, that is fantastic. It's great for the GPs because it means they've got far more in their therapeutic armoury. It's fantastic for patients because it's actually about empowering and helping patients to take control of their lives. And it's brilliant for the voluntary sector who often struggle to market their wares. So you can see everything is blended in, and the idea is that we provide holistic health to patients. Tower Hamlets is one of the most deprived communities in the country. The problem with Tower Hamlets, though, in the past was that when people made it, they got education or they got better income. They always moved out of Tower Hamlets, and it was always defined previously as the place where people got left behind. That has completely changed now. It is the place now where people want to stay. Interestingly, the rents now in the East End of London are now higher than the West End of London. Now, that's bad on one level, but it does show that actually it's completely turned round to somewhere where people really want to stay and live with their families. The biggest ethnic minority community is the Bangladeshi community, about 40%, a big Somalian community, but really absolutely massive ethnic diversity, which is what makes it a very exciting and interesting place to live. There's over 35 different languages spoken, which can be challenging at times. So we do employ advocates and interpreters for some of the most common languages, but it's much more difficult when it's the rarer languages. And there is a language line, but invariably in general practice, that's quite difficult. It's quite really important to actually have somebody there with you to interpret and pick up people's body language at the same time. When I first trained as a doctor, we were always taught that you should use titles, that you wear ties and suits. I'm afraid I never did that. We don't wear ties, we don't use our titles. It's very informal. And that's about actually being much more flexible in the relationship you have with patients. It's trying to work out what it is they want from the relationship. And there are occasions where they want very clear direction. You know, somebody comes in frightened, they think they might have a serious chest infection. Sometimes it's really helpful to be very directive. But most of the time people are coming in with long-term illnesses, and what's crucial there is that you work in partnership with them. You know, when a patient with a long-term illness like diabetes comes into me and says, Sam, I want you to do this for me, then I think to myself, I've succeeded. I remember a 10-year-old coming in and saying to me, Sam, my peak flow's gone down 50. I need a step up in my treatment. Please prescribe me this. And isn't that wonderful? And actually, what a great idea to recognise that actually children can manage their own illnesses. I think the other thing that's really exciting in general practice in Tower Hamlets, which is leading the way, I think, in developing new models of general practice, is the confederation of GPs. The idea that groups of GPs that are in the same neighbourhood work together to achieve some most amazing targets. So we are now in Tower Hamlets, despite it being one of the most deprived communities in the country, getting the best cholesterol and blood pressure control in the country for patients with diabetes and heart disease, and with very early evidence of reduced strokes, reduced heart attacks, and reduced amputations in patients with diabetes. That, I think, is quite stunning. And that, at its heart, comes from GPs working together in confederations, along with very simple ideas of sharing all their data and information. In Tower Hamlets also, we're one of the government's 14 pioneers in integrated care. And what does that mean in reality? Well, now in each practice in Tower Hamlets, about 5% of the patients are managed proactively in multidisciplinary meetings every month. So typically in a practice you would see often one of the GPs or one of the members of the team going through every single patient with the notes projected onto the wall and a complete comprehensive discussion with a team which will include the district nurses, somebody maybe from the Alzheimer's Society, age concern, social worker, proactively managing the patients. Now, most of them are housebound and terminally ill, but increasingly this number is going to go up to 20% of the practice population. And the idea is this: if we manage patients much more holistically, we are much more likely to maintain their quality of life in the community and avoid them going into hospital until they absolutely have to. In terms of future plans at Bromley by Bow, the answer is one never knows what's going to happen, and that's because of the way things develop. You know, a lot of the time it's a member of staff or somebody in the community who will come and say, I want to do this. And the whole attitude of Bromley by Bow is a can-do culture and a supportive culture. So with all the people who work at Bromley by Bow and in the practice, there is always someone there with a skill that can support somebody else who wants to develop a good idea. So some of it's planned and some of it's obviously clearly focused on the need of the community, but a lot of this absolutely comes from the community itself. And so that's the fun of Bromley by Bow, actually. When you take people on tours there, even I don't even know what I'm going to see around the next corner often, and that's the excitement of it.